Good afternoon, Hawkeye Nation. Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm and representing Iowa football at the voice of college football. Mark Rogers not with us today. We have got an hour-long show, though, and I'm going to do something different today. We're going to open the call lines. We've got a Kentucky guest joining us here in just a few minutes, actually. So if you're here for Iowa, Kentucky, certainly hang tight because we are talking everything Wildcats today. And Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on Sports will be joining us here shortly. So Kevin McGuffey, a guy who follows Kentucky, who covers Kentucky football, and he will give us some good insight on the Wildcats and the Hawkeyes. So here's the deal. I am going to open the phone line. And if you're new to my show, we're not actually simulcasting on my channel today. So this may be new to some people that don't follow me over at From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube, but you are welcome to call in as well. And I'll keep the phone line open once Kevin gets here. The phone line to call in is 515-635-1601. The reason I'm doing that is we got Mark, who is MIA today, not available today, has got some things he's dealing with. So me talking into a microphone, even until Kevin gets here, isn't necessarily ideal. I'd like to have some interaction with all of you. And then the other thing about this is I'm not doing a call-in show this week in preparation for the Music City Bowl. I can tell you this, if you're a Hawkeye fan or if you're a Kentucky fan and you're wanting a preview, we will be releasing a preview on my channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm tomorrow, an exclusive preview for Iowa, Kentucky with myself and former Iowa assistant coach Don Patterson. That is available today. It will be available this evening to premium subscribers over at From the Hawkeye of the Storm, available for everybody on Wednesday. Myself and Coach Patterson, an hour-long show where we delve into the matchup in the Music City Bowl, which, of course, will commence on Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So Ari Gold, Don is not coming on tomorrow. Again, show will be released tomorrow. It's already recorded, available to premium subscribers on my channel here this evening. Italicus, yes, hoping to see a lot of youth playing this weekend. The Hawkeyes have an opportunity to showcase the talents of guys like Xavier Wampa, Joey Labus, certainly guys that haven't seen as much playing time due to depth. Certainly Xavier Wampa is a perfect example of that. Wampa, I think at a lot of schools would have probably played as a freshman, frankly. Sounded like he really came along in the spring and certainly had a good fall camp. But they've had depth there with Kayvon Merriweather, Quinn Schulte, Sebastian Castor really came on strong, has held down the cast position with Cooper DeJean sliding out to corner. So opportunities for playing time in this game with Kayvon Merriweather gone, Terry Roberts injured, Jamari Harris injured. There are opportunities on the back end of that defense to see the field. And certainly on offense, same would apply with Petrus out with an injury. We know the receiver issues right now with Keegan Johnson gone to Kansas State, Arlen Bruce in the portal, not with the team. And of course, we're waiting to see what happens with Padilla, but he's gone as well into the portal. No word on his recruitment. Kind of an interesting storyline there. I've not heard anything. By all indications, Alex is a pretty quiet kid, and I'm not really surprised that his recruitment has not been a real public thing. But wherever he goes, certainly wish him the best. But an opportunity for Joey Labus, an opportunity for Carson May. If you missed my preview, I released a preview over from the Hawkeye of the Storm yesterday, about a 10-minute preview of the game. You can certainly check that out. It's kind of a condensed, dumbed-down version of what we talk about with Coach Patterson on the show that will be released tomorrow. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up a reminder to everybody who's here. All of the longer, including this show, all of the podcasted shows, live shows will be available on demand. They are available on demand. Search From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google, etc. Okay, I've got the phone line open, I believe. Let's make sure it's up. All right, we should be good to go. 515-635-1601 and 51. I see somebody just tried to call, so I believe it's up now. So it may not have been up a minute ago, but it's up now. 515-635-1601 to talk Hawkeyes and Wildcats. And again, we're going to be joined by Kentucky insider Kevin McGuffey here in just a few minutes. Let's get to our first caller. Thank you for calling Iowa Football, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's the real MVP. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Looking forward to our football game that's going to be played between the two teams we work for the second time this calendar year.
The real MVP, I will say you did come to my mind here earlier today when editing our show that will be released with Coach Patterson tomorrow. I do find it extremely ironic. You have been around this show and you've been following Mark's work for a long time, and I'd like to think you've been following my show for a decent amount of time as well. I just think it's ironic, the fact that you have a situation where these two teams are playing back-to-back years and they just happen to be the Hawkeyes and the Wildcats. It's just an ironic thing. I don't like that. I mean, but it does create an interesting conversation with someone like you that I do appreciate you following the show, even though you're a Kentucky fan.
Well, I appreciate the content you produce, and it gets me more educated about a team that I have no connection to, and it makes me a more knowledgeable fan. So I appreciate that.
Can you give us Hawkeye fans an update on CJ Frederick? I know this is a football show, but
he looked good in his last game, but we played Kentucky played Florida A&M or something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know how much stock he put into it, but he did hit a few threes. So hopefully,
you didn't lose to Eastern Illinois. You beat Florida A&M, correct?
Yes, we did. Okay. Kentucky beat Florida A&M. I believe it was 88-68 was the final.
Okay.
So
I'm curious, as a Kentucky fan, and there was some criticism, and I think rightfully so, with Kentucky being selected for this bowl game, that game occurring at the same time as the Louisville-Kentucky basketball game. Will you have two screens going? How do you handle that?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Corey, yet. I haven't figured out the plan because Louisville basketball isn't doing well this season. I think that's fair to characterize, being 2-10, 2-11, something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long that game will be watchable before the margin gets to 15 or 20.
Fair enough.
So
I can tell you the one, and I think back to the Iowa-Nebraska football game in late November. Iowa-Clemson played on the basketball court that same day. Certainly not comparing Iowa-Clemson to the Kentucky-Louisville rivalry, but I'm the kind of guy that has no problem bringing out a second TV. So that's what I did that day, and I'm sure there will be plenty of Kentucky fans that will be doing the same.
Yeah, I just feel bad that Kentucky fans are being put into this position where they have to choose between basketball or football. There was actually a controversy within Kentucky Nation this offseason. I don't know how much you or the Iowa fans are aware of it, but John Calipari, the head coach of Kentucky basketball, said Kentucky is a basketball-first school. Well, Mark Stoops, the head coach of Kentucky football, did not like the comment. Apparently, there was a meeting between the athletic director and the two head coaches, and now they're kind of put in this position, well, where the two predominant programs of Kentucky athletics are going to be facing off. So I don't know why they would try to bring up flames of an old controversy that took place in the offseason.
Yeah, that was a national thing too. I mean, I remember hearing about that. It's sort of similar, maybe not to the same extent, but it's sort of similar to Iowa basketball scheduling two games on the same day as signing day. Like, I understand scheduling's complicated. Gary Close said on my show here a few days ago that, it's always more complicated than it seems. I still have a hard time believing that there wasn't some way you could work around that to where you don't have to have both the women and the men playing the same day as National Signing Day. I think that's more a result of maybe the athletic department not understanding how to promote your school, how to promote your brand. And I would say it's the same. That shows a lack of insight on the part of, I don't even know. I mean, to me, it's a lack of insight on the part of the Music City Bowl. Why would you take any risk of taking eyes away from the football game? Because you're on MVP. You and I both know, regardless of Louisville and how they, how down they are this year in hoops, there are Kentucky fans. I can guarantee you that this. There are Kentucky fans who literally couldn't care less about football if basketball's on, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah. I think
So
that's a substantial portion of Kentucky football.
so there will be plenty of fans that turn off the Music City Bowl on Saturday to turn on Kentucky Louisville. That's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. And I think it'll affect the game attendance, which
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think there will be more Iowa fans at this game than Kentucky fans for that specific reason.
I think it may
Even
be,
though the drive from Lexington to Nashville is probably closer than Iowa to Nashville.
I could see it being close to MVP, but I agree with you. I think proximity-wise, that gives Kentucky a clear advantage. But there are plenty of Iowa fans who are willing to make the drive. And by the way, good news is we've had terrible weather here in Iowa over the last week, but it's supposed to get pretty darn nice over the next few days. So good traveling weather. The roads should, I mean, I think they are clearing up nicely already with temperatures above freezing. So I think it will be a little bit better attended than I initially thought, because fans like Nashville, especially Iowa fans. I know a lot of Iowa fans that like the idea of Nashville, but I also know a lot of Iowa fans that normally go to these bowl games who are not going. So it will be intriguing. I mean, some of these bowl games, you watch a lot of college football. You see some of these bowl games, like the one, what was the game? Was it Missouri and Wake Forest? Did you see that game?
I saw bits and pieces of it,
Like
but
there couldn't have been more than 300 people in that stadium. I mean,
yeah, I don't foresee that type of attendance issues with the Music City Bowl.
And part of the issue with those games, those early games, was weather. And they're playing in these environments that aren't naturally warm. Even the games that have been played down south have been cold. So no, that won't be an issue. I don't know what the forecast. I guess I should know the forecast for Nashville. Let's see what Google says here. Nashville on Saturday. So it looks like we got a chance of. Am I seeing this correctly? Chance of rain on Saturday. I'm seeing
Maybe I don't know.
I'm seeing a 75% chance of rain in Nashville on Saturday.
Well, what's the temperature?
62 and rainy. Rainy early, then remaining cloudy with showers in the afternoon. Listen, rainfall nearly a quarter of an inch.
Interesting.
So
I guess that would affect the throwing of the two teams.
Well, so you're already down three quarterbacks in this game, obviously, with Levis and Petrus and Padilla. So you're already going to I foresee a lot of running the football on Saturday. But, I mean, it's not easy to run in the rain, is it? I mean, I guess I'd rather run in rain than ice like Iowa did up at the Pinstripe Bowl a few years back. But this is going to be – I cannot imagine this game being played in the 30s. Like, I have a hard time seeing anybody reach 20, frankly.
I have a hard time seeing anybody reach 10.
Well,
seriously,
that's hard to predict, but I can see where you're coming from.
I mean, my gosh, Kentucky! Have you watched Kentucky versus South Carolina? The only game where Will Levis didn't play the entire game.
Yeah. Now, granted, that's good experience for what's his face at quarterback.
Yeah, but it looks like Kentucky's going with a 3 quarterback system for this game.
What are as a fan, Drill MVP, what are your thoughts on potentially? I mean, I don't know how legitimate that is. Are they actually going to, is Mark actually going to play 3 guys? I think that's going to be intriguing if he does. But the idea of Deuce Hogan going up against a guy like Joey Levis, that fascinates me if it happens.
I think it'll happen. I don't see why not for any of these guys. I mean, let them all have the experience of playing in a bowl game. Any of them will be the starter next year for Kentucky because Devin Leary's coming in. So give them a reward for sticking the whole season as a backup.
So how many of those guys transfer out, do you think?
Oh, at least one. Maybe probably 2 if I had to take a guess.
And is Deuce even on scholarship right now?
I do not know.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that, but Corey, for Kentucky, I believe this is the 6th time they've been to the Music City Bowl. So a lot of repetitiveness is starting to come in when it comes to the Music City Bowl for Kentucky. So for Iowa not going to the Music City Bowl often, Kentucky has the opposite problem, where a lot of their fans are tired of seeing the Music City Bowl. And also, it's an 11 a.m. kickoff game, Corey. Do you have any feelings about 11 a.m. kickoffs?
I don't like them.
Yeah, I don't either. Do you think that will drastically affect attendance?
I don't think it'll drastically affect attendance. I mean, a bowl game is a bowl game. People are traveling and staying in hotels anyways. But what I'm frustrated by is the fact that this game is the same day as the national semifinals. Maybe I'm being selfish, but we got a post game show after the game with Coach Patterson at 2:00, 2:15, and then we got the first playoff game kicking off around 3. And of course, I'm talking.
Well,
Central
you know what
time,
else?
so.
What game starts at the same time as this one is Alabama, Kansas State.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. This is a great week to be a college football. There's a lot of good games out there. I mean, we can make fun of the Iowa-Kentucky matchup all we want. That Alabama-Kansas State game could be fascinating. I think will be fascinating.
Right, but it goes back to the point of drawing eyeballs away from viewership. Every bowl game, it seems like up to a certain point, they can evenly space out the bowl games to where you can see a large portion of the bowl game before the next one comes on. But having 2 bowl games start at the exact same time, I don't see the benefit of it. Do you?
No, but again, as you know, TV rules, and you're right. It is weird to have. I don't. Are there any other overlapping games to that extent? I don't think there are. Even on Friday, you've got 4 games that are kind of spaced apart. Yeah, that might be the first true overlap where 2 games are kicking off at the same time. Is there any other example of that even happening? There isn't before Saturday. I can tell you that. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Monday, I guess there is Monday, the Cotton Bowl and the Citrus Bowl overlap, which makes no sense either. Those are the only 2 examples. You got Music City and Sugar overlapping, and then you've got Citrus and Cotton overlapping. So yeah, that's we can go on and on about this for hours. That makes no sense, but it is what it is. Iowa fans, I mean, the Music City Bowl for a couple of different reasons will take a serious hit, and Iowa fans are passionate. I'm sure Kentucky football fans are as well. But given the overlap with the basketball game, given the overlap with the Sugar Bowl, you're going to take a hit. And as the organizers of that game, I guess you have yourself to blame. The ironic thing is you've got ABC and ESPN televising those 2 games, so eyeballs will be somewhere on the ESPN networks, I guess. But you would think you'd want to space them apart if you could.
Well, from what I've heard, now I don't have any facts to back it up, but it seems like the Las Vegas Bowl wanted Kentucky in it, but the Music City Bowl wanted. This is the matchup they wanted, Corey. From what I'm hearing, this is what exactly the Music City Bowl wanted, which I have no idea why they would want this matchup, but if this is what they wanted, and the reason from what I'm hearing Kentucky didn't want to go to Las Vegas is because of traveling with recruiting. There'd be a conflict between Kentucky's recruiting class and them having to travel all the way to Las Vegas to play in that bowl game. So,
yeah, I mean, that baffles me that anybody wanted this rematch, but it is what it is. You play the game in front of you, and the good news is both these teams are playing a lot of young guys, and it's an opportunity to grow regardless of who opponent is. So if this was maybe a better bowl game or a bowl game with bigger implications for these 2 teams, then yeah, you'd hope for a different matchup. But regardless, it's an opportunity to grow. And one more game for each of these teams. Bowl prep is important. Hayden Fry's he advocated for that on a number of occasions. Bowl prep should not be taken lightly. It is a major step in development for a lot of these young athletes that haven't played much.
Okay, and something else I wanted to bring up, I know I'm taking a while, but something I did want to bring up before I let go is Kentucky did let go of their offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello, due to a lack of performance before the bowl game. It seems like Vince Marrow is going to be the primary play caller, but it seems more like a committee type thing. So, Corey, Kentucky got rid of their offensive coordinator. Do you think Iowa will get rid of their offensive coordinator?
No.
Before, after?
I can tell you every indicator, and I've had conversations with a number of people that have strong. I mean, we're talking recruits, we're talking a number of people that I would trust on this subject that you would think would have an indicator of whether or not there are going to be significant coaching changes, and I've heard nothing. And I've asked specifically, have you heard anything? And the answer has been a solid no every time I've asked. Now, maybe I was keeping that under wraps. I don't know why you would do that, especially when you're going after people like, oh, I don't know, Caden Proctor, who's a 5-star recruit that you just lost. I'm not saying that Caden Proctor went to Bama because Brian Ferentz is going to be here. That's not what I'm saying. But he's a perfect example. You would think that you might use that as leverage to say, hey, we're going to be making changes, and here's proof we're actually moving on from Brian. I've not heard any indicator that would suggest that. So my guess, if you put a gun in my head right now, would be I was doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on Brian Ferentz again.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, I saw somebody in the comments section saying that the bowl games are somewhat overlapping. I understand that the end of one bowl game is coming on and then the start of another bowl game's happening. But what I'm bringing up is you have 2 bowl games throughout the entire course of their game.
Correct.
It's going to be starting and ending at basically the same time.
Correct. That's why I say there's only 2 examples of that, and I just named them. The other ones are at least spaced apart to an extent.
Right. Like today's bowl games, the last 30 minutes of one and the beginning of the 30 minutes of the other one do overlap. But that's a bit different than having the entire game overlap, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
So that's what I was bringing up. Corey, good luck to Iowa. Win or lose, I just hope it's a good game for both teams. I hope nobody gets injured. I hope everyone stays healthy. And whether win or lose, are you going to do a post-game show?
We'll do a post-game show regardless. It may be cut a bit short because I know Coach Patterson and I both want to watch the national semifinal with Michigan and TCU, but we will be on live after the game. Yes, sir.
Well, like last year, I'll call in regardless if they win or lose. So I'll show up either way.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate your call as always, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for what you're doing. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Thank you, sir. All right. This is a little different. This is weird, taking calls on a Tuesday afternoon. That's fine. Mark decided to... he had other stuff. He had more important things to do, which is more than understandable. Hardworking guy. Let's add Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football in here. Kevin, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me on again. Second year in a row. Who would have thought that? But again, here we are. So yeah.
But let's talk about that, Kevin. So I'm sure you've maybe had brief conversations with Mark. I don't know if you recorded anything with him after this matchup was announced, but I mean, my initial reaction to this announcement several weeks back was, are you really? Like, you couldn't have formulated a better matchup. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative about either team. You know, I got a lot of respect for Mark Stoops. I think both programs have a lot of respect for one another for good reason. There you got the Deuce Hogan storyline, and it sounds like maybe Deuce plays a little bit on Saturday. We'll like to get your opinion on that. But overall, I think both of these teams would like a different opponent. And then you have the Louisville, Kentucky basketball factor. Just talk about the matchup and how is the Kentucky fan base handling this game on Saturday?
The best way to probably describe it is rather apathetic. I mean, me personally, I'm excited because, Kentucky, this is only the 22nd bowl game in school history and 7th in a row under Stoops. So it's not something to the point where I think Kentucky football should be saying meh at a bowl game. But as you said, you have, as the caller who was on before you made took a lot of my material, just kidding, made some good points. The Kentucky Louisville basketball game is at noon on Saturday. Obviously, that's one of the biggest things here in the state of Kentucky every year. And then you also have the Music City Bowl. And honestly, with the player opt-outs that Kentucky's had, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and just the fact that, it's Kentucky and Iowa playing again, and the question is, why? But as the caller before you said, that's the game that the Music City Bowl apparently wanted. And to go back to what the person was saying before, Las Vegas did want Kentucky, and the story that was going around here was that Kentucky didn't want to go because it was that weekend before recruiting, before signing day. So there does appear to be some validation to that. But as far as the game, like I said, the fan base is not real excited, and it's It's only a 3.5-hour drive from Lexington to Nashville. So, usually you get 30,000 Kentucky fans driving down there. We'll see how it turns out on Saturday. But like I said, generally it's just kind of like, yeah, we're playing Iowa. Okay, let's try to go 2-0 all the time against them. One of the things I do for Last Word on college football is bowl projections. And the last one I had Kentucky and Minnesota playing, which I thought would be a much more, because those two schools had never played. But I don't know. Do you think Iowa's lost that last game against Nebraska? Do you think that hurt where they ended up? Or
Kevin, I'll just be quite frank. And people ask me this during the season every year, like, oh, where do you think Iowa's going to be? I don't know anything about bowl selection. So that's why people like you were around, Kevin, because I have no feel. And listen, I know people want that. I know Scott Dockerman on the Iowa beat does a lot of that. And so you would have a better feel for it than me. I can tell you from an outsider's perspective, I look at it, and from what you just said, that's an obvious reason to match up Kentucky, Minnesota. Now, did you have them in Music City Bowl?
Right. I'm sorry.
Did you have them in Nashville, Minnesota?
I actually had Kentucky. The last projection I did, I had Kentucky in the Music City Bowl. I had them playing Minnesota. I had Iowa in the Mayo Bowl, I think, playing. I think it was North Carolina State, but
okay.
But anyway, that's how I had it. Obviously, that's not the way it worked out. But still, like I said, anytime you get to play, and I give Coach Stoops all the credit in the world. He's he's certainly not apathetic about this. Kind of the same what I was talking about. You don't ever scoff at a bowl game. It's another month to get prepared. Some people are kind of saying it's almost like an early look at 2023. Because of the opt-outs and all the other issues, things that have been happening. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to it on Saturday, and I'm looking to see if we can get over the over-under. So,
I'm going to get to the opt-outs in a second. I do want to give a shout-out to the sponsor here, our sponsor at Iowa Football, the Voice of College Football. And today, we're simulcasting to SEC at the Voice of College Football. Gene Arthur Associates sponsoring the show. Contact Gene Arthur Associates. Link in the description below for all your home auto, all your insurance needs. Certainly click that link, and appreciate Gene Arthur supporting the show as they have been all season long. Kevin, you mentioned opt-outs, and I recorded a show with former Iowa assistant coach Don Patterson yesterday. It'll be released on my channel tomorrow. But one thing he did make a point of saying, and exactly what you just said, this is an opportunity due to opt-outs, due to the transfer portal, and people going to the draft and wanting to prepare for that early, an opportunity for younger guys to see the field. So, who's on your short list of Kentucky guys that maybe Wildcat fans have not seen here in 2022 that you think could make an impact in this game?
Well, you start at quarterback. Right now, Kaya Sharon is listed as the starter. He played the one game against South Carolina that Will Levis did not, when he had the turf toe problem. I thought he did a pretty good job. He was like 17 out of 29 for 100 and somewhere around 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just, this is one of those, South Carolina was just the better team that night. But a guy who's also talking about getting some reps is a freshman named Destin Wade. He's a highly touted player from Nashville. He and his brother Keaton signed with Kentucky as part of last year's class. Hasn't played at all this year, but like I said, Vince Marrow, Scott Woodward, and maybe a host of others are kind of calling the plays. And it looks like both of those guys, and possibly Deuce Hogan, may see some playing time. And from the Kentucky standpoint, it would be kind of crazy if Deuce Hogan was to lead a last-minute, touchdown drive to win the game or something like that. But Destin Wade is the guy that I'm keeping an eye on. He was a Class 6A Player of the Year, Mr. Football in Tennessee last year. Threw for over 2,000 yards, ran for over 1,000 yards. He's that dual threat kind of player where Sharon's more your standard drop back passer. That's a guy that I'm really interested in seeing getting out on the field, and I think a lot of the Big Blue Nation is as well. And then behind him at the running back position, Chris Rodriguez also not going to play. Cavassier Smoke, the normal backup, he put his name in the transfer portal. So you've got Lavelle Wright and Juton McClain. Both of those guys have played. Wright has not played a whole lot. He played early in the season, has not played very much lately, and it's kind of one of those points where get in, show what you can do, going ahead into the next season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Carrington Valentine, starting quarterback, has declared for the draft. Andrew Phillips will start in his place. And then DeAndre Square, the guy you guys probably don't want to talk about. If they anyway, we're going to do DeAndre Square is not going to play. Trevin Wallace will be in his spot. So, like I said, Dustin Wade, Andrew Phillips, and Lavelle Wright and Juton McClain are guys just off the top of my head that I'm really got my eye on Saturday.
I'm assuming Destin and Keaton are brothers.
Yes, they are.
So you're going to see Keaton at linebacker. He's going to play a little bit. I saw him on the two deeps, and
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious because that was the commonality from Coach Patterson in recording that show yesterday too, is what he had heard, and he's just hearing rumblings just like I am, but what he had heard, and you would know better than I would, that Destin's kind of the number one guy. I know the depth chart has three guys as the number one guy, but is that kind of how you feel? Even though, like you said, is it Sharon? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Sharon.
Even Sharon seen more time.
He's seen more time. Like I said, I think Wade is going to be may end up getting a majority of the reps. We'll see what happens. Kentucky going against that very, very strong Iowa defensive line. The defensive line dominated last year, and Kentucky had a whole bunch of had a much better offensive line than they do this year. And Iowa's guys up front, dominated the game, and that's going to be something to keep an eye out from. And that's for Wade as has the running threat. That may be something where he can, make some open field make some plays in the open field, and keep drives going, things like that. Like I said, I'm interested to see what he can do.
So what is the general consensus from the fan base, Kevin, as far as the Music City Bowl in comparison to the Louisville basketball game? Like, I know Kentucky's a basketball school, and our caller before you jumped on talked about the little feud that Stoops and Calipari had way back when. Wasn't that long ago, actually. But
yeah,
what is the consensus from fans about those games overlapping? It just seems odd to me that you would want that, even from a Music City Bowl perspective.
Right. I agree. There's been a couple people have put polls up on Twitter and other places, and surprisingly, 55. The bowl game is say which game are you going to watch? You're going to watch Music City Bowl, or you're going to watch the basketball game? And surprisingly, to me anyway, the bowl game has been winning most of that. Like I said, I don't understand it, why you do that, but we know TV and ESPN makes the rules, and everyone else just kind of has to go along with it. I said the Kentucky the basketball game. One thing about it, the Louisville, if you followed it, but Louisville right now is one of the worst teams in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're like 2-10 or something like that right now, with a lot of really, really bad losses. So in theory, it should be a Kentucky win, but you never know with a rivalry game. And like I said, I've been surprised that more people are saying now that they're more interested in the football game than the basketball game. When it was first announced, I think it was the other way around. But I think the closer we're getting to that game, to Saturday, people are, I think, just from what I'm hearing, are coming around a little more towards the football game.
So, Kevin, fill me in on this. Is Deuce Hogan on scholarship right now?
I'm not. I thought he was still a walk-on, like a preferred walk-on. I don't know. I can't apologize. I don't ever remember seeing him getting officially put on scholarship. But I know he was like just a preferred walk-on before. So that's what I'm going to stay with. And then if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will jump on quickly and correct me. So
how apt or how willing has Mark Stoops been over the years to deploy two quarterbacks in a game, or three? I mean, we see guys like Jeff Brom at Purdue. I mean, I say that because now Kentucky fans are going to see Jeff Brom a lot more. He did that
right
against Iowa, Purdue last year. Remember him playing three different guys in one game. How apt is Stoops to do that?
Not very. So, which is what makes the whole thing even more interesting. Usually he has his one guy and he sticks with it, sticks with that person, whether it was Levis Terry Wilson before that, Steven Johnson. He gets the one guy and usually stays with them, and then you don't see the second string or even the third string guy unless it's like a 56. Unless it's like a blowout. He usually keeps the main guy in for most of the game, unless something necessitates injury, something like that. So this is going to be interesting. I've never really seen them do something like this, at least what they're talking about. So it adds to me. It adds a little more to intrigue to the game on Saturday.
When I look up and down the depth chart that was released on Monday by the Kentucky Athletic Department, I was particularly intrigued to look at a fairly green running back room. But tell us about, is it Juton McLean? He's a junior, so he's been around the block. How much has he? I'm assuming he's played quite a bit. He's played second fiddle to Rodriguez. Can you give us an idea of what to expect with him?
He's 5'9", 187 pounds. He's run for 238 yards this year, ran for 165 last year. As I said, he and Lavelle Wright played a lot more earlier in the season. For those who may not remember, Chris Rodriguez was suspended for the first 4 games of 2022 for an off-the-field issue that happened, and then also some NCAA, quote, violations or whatever. However the case you want to use it. He's more of a they're both, they're not like Rodriguez. They're not going to be like the guy that's just going to try to run you over. They're more of a slash and dash kind of guy. Like I said, neither one of them has played that much after the first few games of the season. So they're both healthy, and right now they're the only two, along with D. Beckwith, who's a former Tennessee transfer. He would probably be your third guy on the depth chart. Those guys haven't played a whole lot since early in the season. So I'm pretty sure, to use a cliche, they're chomping at the bit and ready to go.
The Hawkeyes, of course, will be without arguably their 2 best receivers in Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson. Johnson committing to Kansas State. Arlen still in the portal. Iowa did get word today. I know this isn't really of concern to you, but Nico Ragaini, as they want us to pronounce his name now. He wants us to pronounce his name now. He will be returning for one more season next year. So I don't know if that does anything for the room, but certainly his leadership, he's healthy. That will help immensely. Kentucky, of course, and Iowa, very similar from a perspective of both teams are a lot better on defense than they are on offense. I think both passing games, especially with Will Levis, have underachieved, without Will Levis. So we can expect these passing games to be behind the curve. What do you expect from the back end of that Kentucky defense defending a dual threat guy? Because, let's be honest, they haven't seen a dual threat on Iowa tape. I don't know. I wouldn't lie ever. So what does Stoops and this defensive staff prepare?
Well, they've had a couple, they've had some, you have Anthony Richardson at Florida. They faced some dual threat guys, Malik Cunningham at Louisville, and had pretty good success against them. So I think, like I said, DeAndre Square not playing, it definitely hurts, but they've got some good guys up front. And like I said, I'd put Kentucky's linebacking group up against anybody's in the SEC with J.J. Weaver and Jaquez Jones, if he indeed plays, and Jordan Wright, those guys. Like I said, I think they've seen this kind of attack before, and I think they'll be ready for it. And it's another thing, adds another wrinkle. And I was reading something today about Sam Laporta being like, I guess the backup quarterback. Is there any truth to that? Or
no publicity stunt. That was all. From what I was told, Laporta was lined up. I think they lined up 320-pound Y.A. Black at quarterback. The media was there today, Kevin. So they got to look at the Iowa offense, and that's what I was told, that was a publicity stunt. If fans knew who the third string quarterback actually is, and I can tell
it's you, right?
No, it's not. No, I was gonna say it's you, Kevin. No, I've been told it is. I'm not gonna bring it up here, but fans would probably wet themselves. Hopefully you don't come to that. Hopefully you don't come to that, because you do have Carson May and Joey Labus. But you're right. Let's be honest. You got 2 guys on. That's it. They don't have any other quarterbacks on the roster. They don't have a walk on this right at this point in the season. I don't know if they had somebody earlier that's left the team, but you're talking 2 guys that have never I don't think either guy has snapped a football. Maybe Labus has taken a snap or two in garbage time at some point. I don't even know about that. It is going to be intriguing from so many different vantage points. You could potentially see 5 different quarterbacks in this game. That's what's crazy to me. You could see 3 different quarterbacks legitimately. I mean, I don't know if you're an Iowa fan. I don't know why you wouldn't want to see both these quarterbacks. Like, regardless of how well Labus plays, don't you want to get a look at a 4-star kid in Carson May? You know, Kevin, because you follow college football, you covered the sport. The Cade McNamara news, him coming to Iowa is big, but you got to have an idea of what's behind Cade next year. So this is an opportunity for these quarterbacks to potentially secure a job next year, or at least put some tape together for the transfer portal. I could see either one of these guys, probably more likely being Labus, entering the portal if he has a good game. But I will be intrigued to see how Kentucky handles a guy who's going to be running a lot. From what I've been told, the Iowa offense during bowl prep has been poor, to say the least, as far as the passing is concerned, because it was just behind from a coverage standpoint, just identifying the opposing defense. So I think he's going to have problems making quick decisions through the air, and so I think you're going to see him running the ball a lot, which could be good, but it could also get ugly for an offense that's not very good at protecting the quarterback anyways.
Right, and I think you throw in the fact that it's probably going to be raining on Saturday. The last I saw, I think it's like 70% chance of rain in Nashville, so that may just even add to the excitement or whatever. But you mentioned McNamara. You think about if we were playing this game maybe this time next year, you'd have Devin Leary quarterbacking Kentucky, and then you have McNamara coaching at Iowa, or not coaching, but quarterbacking at Iowa, and we'd be talking probably an entirely different type of game here than what we're probably going to have on Saturday.
I do recall last year, Kevin, and of course the game ended on this type of a play, pressure in the passing game. Iowa actually ran the ball decently well behind Gavin Williams and LaShawn Williams last year. Do you expect that again? I mean, obviously Caleb Johnson's probably their best, besides Sam Laporta, their best offensive weapon that's proven at this point. He's a true freshman. Do you expect Kentucky to be better against the run in this game as opposed to the game on January 1st?
I don't know if they'll be better. Kentucky has been good against the run this year in general. You know, it's not quite the Iowa numbers as far as defense goes, but Kentucky, I think, is somewhere in the top 20 in points allowed. And I was trying to look up some stats here real quick. It said the defense averages 146 yards rushing, gives up 146 yards rushing a game, and 173 through the air. So they have been a little more susceptible, I guess, to the run in certain games. There's been some games they've done really well against, and you go back to like the Vanderbilt game where, Ray Davis just pretty much ran through them. And of course, now Ray Davis in the transfer portal will be at Kentucky next year. So the whole, hey, here's the guy that beat us, let's get him on our team. Like I said, I think with Kentucky's linebackers and the guys up front, I think they can do a good job. I know I was going to run it, but I think if you can keep, try to keep those guys in check, Kentucky's got a real good shot to win. And I'm going to say like 14-13 is the final or something like that. So.
We were joking last night that perhaps it's first 1 to 10. So
it very well could be. And another thing real quick, Kentucky's had a lot of trouble with special teams this year. So, cost them the game at Ole Miss, cost them another like 2 games this year. So if you're getting into that point where you need a last second field goal, from the Kentucky standpoint, you got to, cross your fingers and hope that everything works. Iowa, I think, has a much stronger kicking game than Kentucky. Kentucky's punter, Colin Goodfellow, basically in a way saved Kentucky's season, making a play on a bad snap, and then ended up tearing up his knee. So if it comes down to that, if it comes down to special teams, Iowa definitely has an advantage in that one for sure.
Do want to thank Gene Arthur Associates again. We'll make sure we get them their airtime. They have graciously sponsored the show. Check it out, Kevin. Home, auto, and all your insurance needs. Link in the description below. Gene Arthur Associates sponsoring the show. Kevin, how's your home and auto insurance? Is it sound?
Yes, it's good. We sorry, apologies to Gene Arthur and Associates, but we don't have them in Kentucky, but we have we have.
That's gonna change now because we're expanding their reach and
Okay. There you go.
They're becoming a national brand.
I love it.
So I got to ask you this, Kevin. So when I look at this game on paper, we obviously know the obvious storylines with the offense is struggling, with the quarterbacks being out, with opt-outs affecting things. If you look at the defenses, I mean, these are two, you mentioned the linebacking course, two of the best linebacking groups in the country. Iowa, of course, down Justin Jacobs, who was out all year, most of the year with an injury, is now moving on to Oregon. But Jack Campbell, Seth Benson, those two position groups might be the two strongest on the football field this Saturday.
Oh, I agree 100%. Like I said, you can't, Campbell dominated the game last year. I think he had 14, 15 tackles, something like that. And like I said, he's everywhere. It always seems to make all the plays. And as we were just talking about with, Kentucky on the other stand, even without DeAndre Square, like I said, you have Jacquez Jones, if he's healthy and able to play. Behind him, you have De'Eric Jackson, who's done a really good job filling in for him this year. Trevin Wallace, who rose to fame last year with the block kick touchdown against Florida. And then Jordan Wright at Kentucky's. Like I said, I would put Kentucky's linebackers up. But they might not, I was probably right here. I'd say Kentucky's linebackers would be like, maybe just a step below. Apologies to any of my Kentucky fans who might be watching. But I mean, like I said, Iowa's defense is they're good for a reason because, they have some really, really good players. So.
And I am just curious, Kevin, these two teams, I mean, the Stoops connection is obvious. The Mark Stoops connection is obvious. But Mike Stoops was not on the staff at this time last year, correct? And he is on the staff now.
Right. Yeah. He's the linebackers coach. So
that's another caveat nobody's really talking about. But two of the three Stoops, we just need to get Bob in there coaching DBs, and we'll be all set.
I think Mark has probably tried, but I think Bob's still with the with the XFL and all that. But yeah, like I said, that's the thing. Like last year, we had the storyline going into the game, with Stoops, playing against his alma mater. That was, that made for great build up leading up to the game. I just said now we don't have that, but I guess you could throw Mike in there. I hadn't thought about that one. So
I'm curious. The punting situation. Obviously, Iowa has had tremendous punting with Torrey Taylor. Kentucky's got an Australian punter as well. I don't know much about William Berry, but tell us a little bit about the redshirt freshman. How much has he actually played? I mean, has he been the punter? Assuming he's been punting all year, but field position is going to be big in a game like this. It's probably going to be low scoring with two offenses. They're going to struggle to move the football. So the punting battle could be, kicking battle in general, but punting specifically could be huge.
Right. Yeah. Wilson Berry, as you said, player from Australia. He played in 4 games this year and averaged 41 yards a punt. Like I said, good fellow. Good for Colin Goodfellow. You may remember, kind of rose to a little bit of. Well, actually, it was Max Duffy, a former punter here. Had the whole thing with Pat McAfee. I don't know if you remember, that during the year, but like I said, Barry played in 2 games last year, averaged 37 yards a punt and 41 yards a punt this year. Like I said, he's, like I said, if it comes down to kicking game, Iowa's definitely got the advantage. I think hands down, but he's he's a very serviceable. Very serviceable guy, gets the job done when needed. So that's about the best, that's about the best you can hope for. So
Matt Ruffalo is it Ruffalo? Am I pronouncing that correctly? His numbers look okay. I mean, I hate to, I think he's 16 to 24 on the year. Is that fair? I know you're not going to probably take a shot at the kid, but I'm just saying numbers wise, he's an average Division I Power 5 kicker. Is that?
And the thing about it is, for whatever reason, things just have not clicked like they did last year. You go back to 2021, he was 54, 56 on extra points, 10 to 13 field goals. This year, he's had a lot more A lot more field goal attempts and a lot less extra points, which goes back to the struggles that Kentucky's had on offense this year. They've had a lot of trouble with just simply snapping the ball, getting the ball back. There's been multiple times the ball, rolled back there, snapped over the head. Had issues with the long snapper this year, and I think that led to a lot of the issues. I mean, like I said, for his career, heading into the season, he had made over 80% of his field goals, which is good. You think 4 out of 5, 12 out of 14. He was 10 out of 13 last year, and then 16 out of 24 this year. He's just, like I said, I think a lot of it they just had, for whatever reason, they have Chance Poore, who's the backup kicker, who's the holder. But for whatever reason, it's just that hasn't really, they haven't gelled this year, and I think that's been some of Ruffalo's problem. Because a long time ago I was high school kicker, and that snap and the hold and the laces out, always very, very important. So like I said, he's a good kicker. He struggled during the middle of the season. The last couple games they started to seem to get it all together. So hopefully for Kentucky fans that will continue going into Saturday.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Chance Poore is the holder, the backup kicker, and the backup punter.
I don't know about the backup punter. He might be now.
He's on the depth
chart.
Yeah,
he's on the depth chart. Yeah. So he was coming out of high school. He was like the number one. He won like some award at like Ray Guy's camp. So he can do every position. He does the kickoffs as well. So
why isn't he kicking and punting then if he was that good?
He was the kicker going into 2020 and really, really struggled. And so he got replaced by Ruffalo, and basically Ruffalo just never gave up the job. So that's where we are right now. So he missed a couple of kicks against Florida in the game that they lost in that one, and had a couple other games that 2020 season with missed kicks. And so Ruffalo kind of came back and took over, and he's just never given up the job. So
I would not be surprised based on what you're telling me if Chance Poore ends up in the portal on January 1st. Does he have 1 year left? I think
he has one. I think he has 1 year left. But I want to say he went through senior day activities this year. So I mean, it's a possibility he could end up somewhere. He could end up somewhere else. I have not heard anything about that, but you never know.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football. Kevin, tell us about your work and where people can find you. I see your handle here on Twitter, but talk a little bit about where people can find your work.
Yeah, just go to Last Word on College Football. Like I said, or my Twitter handle, the very cleverly titled at Kevin McGuffey. When I first joined Twitter, I tried about 8 different variations of things, and all those names were taken. So I'm like, okay, if somebody has my name, then I give up. But kind of thing. But like I said, yeah, check us out at Last Word. We have a lot of. I think we cover about 20 to 25 different teams. We have an Iowa writer. We have Wake Forest. We got Ohio State, not Ohio State, but like I said, just check out the website, and you might find something to your liking. We do previews and do previews of every bowl game, previews and recaps. So that's so I've been working on Music City Bowl. I'm also doing a preview for the Georgia Ohio State game. So I'm really. You guys were talking about that earlier, wanting to see Michigan play, wanting to see Ohio State play. I'm really, really, really looking forward to those games on Saturday. But yeah, just give the website, come check it out, or give us a follow at Last Word on CFB on Twitter, and you can see all the things there too. So yeah, come over, check it out, see what you think.
Kevin McGuffey, Last Word on College Football. Kevin, appreciate you taking the time for the second straight year. And I'm telling you this, if it's Iowa, Kentucky in 2023, then just shut down the sport. But I always enjoy speaking with you. And I guess final question for you, maybe I asked you this a year ago, I know there have been reports by people that I would probably view as credible that have indicated that there is a clause in Mark Stoops' contract that the one job he would potentially take would be Iowa. There's an indication of that in his contract. Is that true?
I don't know if it's officially true, but that's been heavily rumored that, if Aaron's ever left, if Iowa offered him the job, that would be the one that he would possibly leave for, because his name has been linked to some other jobs, before. But like I said, he's got it pretty good here at Kentucky now. He's in the 10th season. He's the second longest tenured coach now, behind Saban. He became the all-time wins leader at Kentucky this year, passing Bear Bryant. I can't see him leaving, but if he did, I think Iowa would definitely, just because obviously the history, I think I would be the job if it ever happened.
Kevin McGuffey, check out his stuff at lastwordoncollegefootball.com and certainly follow him on Twitter. Kevin, we'll look forward to a musical game down in
yes.
Little.
Well, I was gonna say this. Maybe if we're talking next year, it's because Kentucky and Iowa were playing in the playoffs. How about that?
Both
we'll
teams need to take a serious boost on offense for that to happen.
Yes, but, absolutely. But we can always dream.
They're members of the two best conferences in the country. We'll give them that. Thanks, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a happy New Year. Be safe out there. The weather, no joke, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Kevin McGuffey, Last Word on College Football. Appreciate Kevin being here. Super chat from Erica. Thank you, Erica. Any word on Torrey? Is he coming back next year? Nothing official from a public standpoint, Erica, but I've been told it's very likely that Torrey Taylor comes back. So take that for what you will. I'm sure we'll get official word from him at least by Saturday after the game. I would guess. I guess he could wait to announce, but I've been told it's likely he comes back. He could always, if he has a big day in Nashville, say, I kind of like this warm weather. I'd like to have a shot at playing for a warm weather NFL team, and my stock is as high as it's going to be. I don't think it is. I think he actually could have punted a little bit better this year, so maybe he comes back one more year. I think he's like 26 years old, right? So at some point, you understand why a guy might want to move on. Appreciate the super chat, Erica. And then Doc P, any portal news or rumors? All I can tell you, the news that dropped today, Isaac Tesla, Hillsdale Division II transfer wide receiver who Iowa's been in on hard, visited Iowa not that long ago, visited Iowa State as well. Have been told he's going to Baylor to visit. He was offered today by Colorado. So, he's just got a laundry list now of offers from Oklahoma State, Baylor, Iowa State, Houston, Colorado, Miami. Ole Miss is in on him. So lots of offers, lots of opportunities for him. Seth Anderson, expected decision from him in the next, I shouldn't say that. Expect a minimum of a couple of weeks before you hear anything substantial on Seth Anderson. I would be surprised if he commits anywhere before maybe second week of January. He, of course, is the Charleston Southern transfer wide receiver that Iowa has been pushing hard for as well, and also visited not that long ago. Georgia Tech's got an offer for him as well. All right, one more plug for our sponsor. Thank you to Gene Arthur Associates. Visit Gene Arthur Associates online. Visit the link in the description below for your home, auto, and insurance needs. They will serve you right. Thank you to Gene Arthur Associates for sponsoring Iowa football at the Voice of College Football on our weekly show, which is here each and every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Iowa Hawkeyes live. Typically myself and Mark Rogers. Mark not with us today, but enjoyed our discussion with Kevin McGuffey. And a reminder for everybody who's here, we've got a live postgame show this Saturday, folks, after Iowa, Kentucky at the Music City Bowl, which begins, by the way, at 11 a.m. Central Time on ABC. It's Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson live right here. Iowa football at the Voice of College Football being simulcast over on my channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll be taking your calls, chats, questions, the final postgame show of the year. So stay tuned. Show up, please, if you can, because this is Don Patterson has put a lot of work into the postgame show, and I hope we can have a really rock-solid show to finish things off. He has done. He is a savant as it relates to analytics and, of course, just the game in general. So look forward to talking with Coach Patterson at least one more time this season on Saturday following the 11 a.m. game on ABC. All right, folks. Next week, Mark Rogers will be back. We'll be recapping Iowa and Kentucky. Head over to my channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. You can see the podcast on the bottom ticker there. You can find from the Hawkeye of the Storm on your major podcast platforms. We'll be talking Hawkeye football in lead up to the game on Saturday and for weeks ahead. right here. Iowa football, the voice of college football, and from the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.